Good afternoon. I'm Sylvie Kaufmann. I'm a journalist with Le Monde. There have been a lot of talk about wars this morning because, unfortunately, we have many of them going on. We started with the war in Ukraine, and now we're going to talk about the other major war. And Hassan Salameh earlier this morning said that the most worrying thing is that nobody seriously tried to contain the disaster in the Middle East, neither the US nor Europe, of course. And that led, he said, to a situation where the war in the Middle East was allowed to fester and has now become a regional war. But, well, now two men have decided that they should try to find a way towards peace and that they should do it together. They didn't know each other before. They are here today, so please come to the stage. We will discuss this with them. Prime Minister Ehud Olmert. Mr. Olmert was Prime Minister of Israel from 2006 to 2009, and he served in the Knesset for more than 30 years, I think. Dr. Nasser al-Qidwa was born in Gaza. He served as PLO observer at the UN from 1991 to 2005, and then became the foreign minister of the Palestinian Authority. And they are joined by Jean-Noël Barrot, the Minister for Europe and Foreign Affairs of France. So welcome, gentlemen. Please have a seat. I think, Ms. Sivila, as you want. So thank you so much for joining us. I know it's been a little bit difficult to cross the traffic around this area today, so that's why we're starting a little bit late. But Minister Barrot, maybe I will start with you since you came back you were in Israel last week. I think it was your second visit since you took office. And it was a pretty tense visit, I understand, from what we saw. Tell us if you could identify any signs of hope towards a solution, and how do you see it yourself?
Thank you very much, Sylvie, Mr. Prime Minister. Minister, it's a great honor to share the stage with you this morning. I was in Israel and Palestine last week on 7th of November, 1 month after I was there on 7th of October. And I want to go back to what happened 1 year ago when the worst anti-Semite massacre of our history since the Shoah hit and struck the Israeli people. Because when I was there with the families, I was touched by their dignity, and I saw somewhat of a silver lining that I would like to share with you, because there is probably no better place than the Paris Peace Forum to do it. This silver lining is the courage of some of the youth that were there this morning of the 7th of October, and that actually gave their life in order for others to save theirs, including French citizens, including this guy called Hillel Itash, French-Israeli, 22 years old, that was about to start engineering studies, and told his parents that he would go to the Festival Nova because it was the last break before studies that were going to be very tough. On the first occasion, Hillel Itash could have saved his life by entering into a car in this tragic morning with some of his friends who survived the terrorist attack. But he'd rather stay on the site because some of his friends were behind and he did not want to let them down. On the second occasion this morning, Liel Itash could have saved his life once again by hiding into the shelter where he actually brought some of his friends, but he had rather, on this tragic morning, run away to attract on himself the fire of the terrorists. This guy was a monument of courage. He was 22 years old, and in these times of tragedies and wars that we're experiencing in the Middle East, he sets an example of charism and generosity that should be a source of inspiration. Now, of course, since then, war has been waging like never in Gaza and more recently in Lebanon. And we're very much concerned about the toll of this extremely intense war, the toll on civil population, but the toll also on the territory itself. And I'm thinking about the cultural heritage in Gaza and in Lebanon that is now threatened. And the way I see the path towards a resolution of this crisis, even though it's more of a theoretical path, is in 3 steps. The first step is the ceasefire in Gaza, as in Lebanon, but I'm going to focus on Gaza and Palestine, with the liberation of hostages and with the massive flow of humanitarian help that is extremely needed by the populations out there. We have testimonies of humanitarian workers that tell us that the situation in Gaza is worse than anything they've seen throughout their entire career. So humanitarian help needs to flow as soon as possible and massively. The second step is to build this political solution where we have 2 states living side by side in peace and in securities with mutual recognitions and security guarantees. And the third step, but we're still a long distance from there. The third step will have to be reconciliation and the ability for these 2 people that have fought so hard one against another to be able to accept the existence of one another and to live in peace side by side. So, of course, when I make this theoretical roadmap towards the stabilization of the region, it's hard to see when you contrast it with the real world and what's happening on the field, where the silver lining is. Well, the silver lining is just in front of you. You have 2 leaders, one that grew up in Israel, another one that grew up in Gaza, and that joined forces in order to put or to table a credible proposal for the step 2 of this roadmap, which is building a durable framework, a durable architecture for peace and security between Israel and Palestine. So we're very grateful to have them today in Paris, and we will support them in their effort to bring peace and justice to the region.
Thank you very much. So, Prime Minister Olmert, maybe I'll start with you. How does this roadmap that Minister Barrot just presented, how does it go along with your plan? Is it, yes?
Thank you, Mr. Minister and Dr. al-Qidwa, distinguished participants here. Mr. Minister, you have described the roadmap that we have articulated in a very accurate manner. This is precisely what we said. As far as I'm concerned, obviously, of course, the events of the 7th of October are unforgettable and unforgivable. And the war was inevitable given the circumstances and what triggered it. At this point, actually, I said it a long time ago, I thought that the war should stop. Israel achieved what could be achieved by a military operation. We have destroyed the capacity of military capacity of Hamas. Subsequently, we also targeted the architect of this terrible event, Ehud, and we destroyed most of the bunkers and the tunnels and the rockets and the command positions. And I didn't think that already back in January that there was so much more to achieve militarily that justifies the cost in Israeli soldiers' lives, in innocent civilians, Palestinian civilians living in Gaza, the destruction of Gaza, the impact on the lives of 2 million citizens that live in Gaza and that are not terrorists or participant in terror, and of course, the release of the hostages. So I entirely agree, and that's what both of us published and signed and made it a public appeal to the international community. And I must say that we received a very warm attitude by your country, your president, and now yourself, and I'm very grateful for it. It's very important. We need to stop the war now, return the hostages, release Palestinian prisoners from Israel as part of the agreement, pull out from Gaza while a different force will come into Gaza that will be mandated to prevent any further attacks by Hezbollah or any other terrorist groups across the border into the state of Israel. And of course, the Palestinians will have to establish, and I'm sure that Dr. al-Qidwa will elaborate, will have to establish a new administration, commissioners that will take over the Gaza in order to try and rebuild Gaza. With the assistance of the international community, I think also Israel, in order to make sure that we move forward from where we were into an entirely different era, an entirely different attitude. Finally, what we were trying to do is number one, to talk about the two-state solution within the framework of what I proposed to the Palestinian president in 2008 already, and unfortunately he didn't have the courage and the vision at that time to sign it, which may have changed entirely the Middle East, the lives of millions of people there. Two-state solution on the basis of the 67 borders, with an annexation of about 4.4% of the territory of the West Bank and a swap of territory equal size that was part of the State of Israel before 1967, so that the principle of the 67 borders will be maintained. And also there will be a connection, physical connection, a highway that will connect Gaza into the West Bank, something that never existed before. But if a Palestinian state is to be established, there has to be a physical connection between the two parts of it. Finally, which I want just to emphasize here, which I think is very important, is that we propose that the old city of Jerusalem, that the Arab side of Jerusalem, all the neighborhoods which were not part of the State of Israel up until 1967 will be part of the Palestinian state, and it will be the capital of the Palestinian state. There will be one part of Jerusalem which has been and was the capital of the state of Israel for entire history of the Jewish people, and will remain the capital of the state of Israel. The side which was not part of the state of Israel up until 1967 will be the capital of the Palestinian state. The old city of Jerusalem will have no exclusive political sovereignty, not Israeli and not Palestinian. I personally believed, even in 2008 when I presented it to President Abbas, that if there will be a claim of one side for an exclusive political sovereignty, there will never be peace between Israel and Palestine, and there will never be peace between Jews and Muslims, no matter what. So both of us have to understand it, acquiesce with it, and accept it. There will be trust of 5 nations, or maybe more, that will include, of course, Palestine and the State of Israel, that will administer the old city and will make sure that all the religious sites that are very important for Muslims, Jews, and Christians will be free for all believers. This is the framework. We can, of course, add more, but I think Dr. al-Qidwa would like to say what he has to say.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. al-Qidwa, this Prime Minister Olmert just mentioned that this is quite similar to the plan he presented in 2008. It didn't work. Why would it work this time? Do you see, where do you see a path which may lead to some progress?
Yes, thank you very much. I would like to begin by thanking you for the opportunity and by thanking you, Madam, for chairing or moderating this session, by thanking the Minister for being here and to congratulate him on his appointment. Of course, to congratulate all of you on the Armistice Day. We were about to lose this panel because of that, but it's still very important, and congratulations for this. Indeed, as Prime Minister Olmert said, we came up with a joint proposal that covers 3 important issues: the war in Gaza and the necessity, the absolute necessity to stop and how this could happen, and 2, the overall political solution in the form of 2 states, Israel and Palestine, on 1967 borders with the swap of territory, about 4.4% of the sum of the territory of the West Bank, and of course the future of Jerusalem, as was explained. In addition, of course, there is a call on officials on both sides to continue negotiations to solve other important issues such as settlements, settlers, refugees, and additional security measures and things like that. In other words, we did not try to come up with a whole plan or a whole package. We came up with very important position that we felt that it was our right and even duty to announce and to say loudly that what is happening now is wrong, it shouldn't happen, and we need to change course and we need to find a political solution. Now, to answer your question, it didn't work before, the 2-state solution and the ideas that we are presenting. Why it should work now? Because of the untold pain felt by both sides, because of the war, because of the atrocities, because of the bloodshed. It will happen that reasonable people on both sides will pause and start thinking that we haven't achieved much, that we are back to square one. So what's the solution? What we should do? The only solution is what we are proposing. And this is the important point here. It's not only good and nice, it's the only potential solution. So people have to make up their mind and choose either continued wars or a solution, political solution in the form of 2 states as we propose, and again, this is the only potential solution. Now, having said all that, I think we have duties as Palestinians and Israelis, and the international community has duties as well. And that reminds me of what happened to 2 French gendarmes in Jerusalem. they were treated very badly. And that was a diplomatic incident that should have never happened. And what that tells us, it tells us that this Israeli government, is telling their people that they can do whatever they want. Now, the West generally can tell the Israelis, we love you, we are committed to your security, we stand by your security, and we will never change, we will never hesitate, but you cannot do whatever you want to do. There are rules. There is international laws that must be respected, and that should be the right starting point from which people will start rethinking some of their basic positions, and we will get in at that stage and say, okay, we have a proposal for you. We have a proposal for you that can be achieved, and not only can be achieved, is the only way forward. Now, finally, you will ask me about Trump, and I'll postpone the answer to your question when you ask. Thank you very much again.
Thank you very much. But maybe before we go to Trump, because of course, yes, the Trump question was going to be asked. Monsieur Barrot, Dr. al-Qidwa asked a question to us Europeans, in fact. So are we ready to do what he just recommended? Are we ready to tell the Israelis this is not the way you should behave? And then I have another question for you before we go to Trump.
Well, there are many important things that have just been said. But indeed, force has demonstrated its inability to get the hostages back and to credibly settle the situation in the region. And that's why force now needs to let diplomacy speak, or need to let the space to negotiations and diplomacy. And as far as the Israeli government is concerned, well, as everyone knows, France stands alongside Israel. France is deeply attached to the security of Israel, and these are not only words. We've demonstrated our full support to the security of Israel. Every time Israel has been the target of massive ballistic attacks by Iran, we've shown this over the years by demonstrating our super strong commitment to deter Iran from developing a nuclear program that threatens the security of Israel. In summary, we are deeply attached to the security of Israel. But it's no offense to the people of Israel or to the Jewish people more broadly to express to the Israeli government that in the interest of Israel, in the interest of Israel's security, international law needs to be respected, and justice needs to be reached, because this is the only way to durably ensure the security of Israel. And that's the reason why, at the same time that we were working hard and deploying efforts to ensure the security of Israel in the ways I just mentioned, we also took sanctions. Sanctions at the national level against violent settlers, against 28 violent settlers, and sanctions at the European level. And we were instrumental in setting up the sanction regime that was already activated 2 times and that might be activated a 3rd time soon, because we believe that those violent settlers and these intensive, aggressive settlement activities is illegal, that it should stop in the interest of Israel and its security.
Dr. al-Qidwa, going back to the Palestinian people and your plan, your joint plan, who will decide for the Palestinian people?
Very good question. Obviously, the Palestinian situation is extremely bad. I'm not trying to hide this. We have almost illegal situation in Ramallah and very bad situation in Gaza, and we have to change this. Now, at the same time, I do understand that change will come in stages. It's not going necessarily to be comprehensive. We can start in Gaza by way of, for instance, what we propose is the establishment of a transitional council of commissioners for Gaza as a beginning that is organically linked to the Palestinian Authority. So we maintain the idea of territorial integrity and the unity of the Palestinian people. So this could be the first step towards change. But if we maintain the current status quo and we try to find solution between Abbas and Hamas, for instance, and some silly ideas that are being discussed in certain capitals in the region, that's not going to fly. And even if it flies, it's going to be for very short time, it will fall again. And finally, let me refer to the presence of two friends and experts of international relations, Ghassan Salama and Jean-Marie Guéhenno. And when I look at them, I feel scared a little bit. So if I say something wrong, it's their fault, okay, guys? So you please take this into consideration. Listen, the presence of the two of us, former Prime Minister Olmert and myself, is a testimony of the determination on both sides to do something about what's happening. And we are ready. We take chances and took risks, and it's fine, as long as it will lead to some good results. But we need the support of governments, relevant governments, in the region and beyond internationally. And frankly, Mr. Minister, we are waiting for you. We are waiting for France, because France is in the middle, and the middle is good. The middle can do things that maybe others cannot do. So this is the right moment to do things and to do them correctly, and thank you again.
Okay. So there is France, but there's also a very big country, which is the United States, and which just elected, I was going to say a new president, but he's not exactly new, and we know what he thinks about foreign policy. So what do you expect from him? Maybe I'll start with you, Minister Barrot. What does it change from where you stand today? What does the return of Donald Trump to the White House change for the situation in the Middle East?
Well, I think the most important thing that changes is that we have a new administration. What we've seen in the recent past is that the previous administration was also held back in a certain way by the elections themselves. So even before, knowing who the winner was going to be, we knew that the arrival of a new administration with a 4-year horizon to act would make a difference. And that's also why this proposal is very timely, because at a time when a new administration is going to enter on stage, they're going to be willing to act, and they're going to need to find inspiration among those that have thought hard about the topics. And I think the new administration will pay a lot of attention about this roadmap that was just presented to you. And now, with respect to Donald Trump, of course, I'm not going to try and guess what he might try to do. What we've seen him do in his first term is try to find agreements across countries in the region, the Abraham logics, which are logics that can very well incorporate some of the proposals that are on the table. In the sense that any regional architecture that would be based on mutual recognitions will need to incorporate a state of Palestine. And for the state of Palestine to take shape, There will need to be a thorough discussion with the Israeli authorities, and the great merits of the work that our prestigious panelists have done is to get into the very details of what would be the parameters of such a thorough discussion. So let us look at the arrival of a new administration, of a team that has previously worked to establish new relationships in the region as an opportunity to convey the ideas, the proposals that some of us have worked on, and that aim at creating this situation where two states live side by side with mutual recognition, security guarantees, and therefore peace and security for their people.
Prime Minister Olmert, is it good news or bad news, the arrival of Donald Trump at the White House for your plan?
Thank you for not asking me who I would have preferred in the first place. I don't know. It's the maximum that I can say and remain respectful. I don't know. I don't think that the new administration is fully aware of the complexities and what needs to be done and how it can be done. However, I do want to remind something which is perhaps promising. I hope it will. What President Trump called the deal of the century, which he proposed on 2020, was, in my mind, not the best possible plan. I think that mine was much better, obviously. However, there was one thing which he did say in the deal of the century, and this is that he aims at two states. Now I have to share with you something. When it was presented by President Trump, and they forgot to invite the Palestinians to take part in the party in the White House, for some reason, I don't know why. I got a telephone call from Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian Authority. And he asked me, perhaps we can meet and discuss this plan before he makes any public statement about it. And he set up a meeting in New York, which I was supposed to be there anyway, and he was supposed to be there. And we had a long discussion. And I said to him, President, don't repeat the mistake that you did with me when I presented you with a peace plan, comprehensive, on the basis of 67, 2 states, everything. And you failed to sign it. The President talks about 2 states. My proposal to you is, however bad this plan is, however missing in many different ways it is, had I been you, I would have said, I accept the basis of this plan on the 2 states, and if the Prime Minister of Israel will make a public statement that he accepts the 2 states, I'm ready to negotiate right now. I said, count on me. There is not a chance that Netanyahu will say that. So, for the first time, you will not have to be the side that says no. Just say it. We went out from the room where we stayed into a big crowd of journalists and television cameras. And President Abbas, as his habit, said, no way, we'll never negotiate on that basis, and the rest is history. So what I say now when you ask me about President Trump, if President Trump will be consistent with what he said in the past, not on the details, but on the basis, the framework of two states, it may prove that he will be the bad news for Netanyahu. Why? Because if he will present it, Netanyahu will have no one in America that he can come to assist him against the president. He could do it with the Republicans against the Democrats. The Democrats will not take part in this game anymore. So this is something that we need to follow carefully. I want to add something which is very important, because it is obvious that the Israeli government is not the government that I support. Okay, just to avoid any misunderstanding. I'd be happy if while I talk now there will be a push on our cellulars that tell me that Netanyahu resigned or that he's no more Prime Minister of the State of Israel. Okay? But at the same time, we have to remember that part of why we had to embark together jointly, and I admire the courage that Dr. al-Qidwa manifested in doing it with me, that we do it now because in 2008 the president of the Palestinian Authority failed to agree to more or less the same plan that we present now together. Had he done it then, everything would have been different. Let's not forget this as well.
Thank you. Dr. al-Qidwa, do you see an opportunity in this new situation? And also, since we have, I'm sorry, we won't have time to take questions because
we politicians hate to admit, but I cannot predict. Because frankly, the only predictable thing about Mr. Trump is the unpredictability. So we can't know. But I, after thinking, would propose three things. One, we don't wait. We just move. And two, we don't give up on our positions of principles, including the insistence on the two states on 1967 line basis and the necessity of ending the war in Gaza. But three, we don't go to war with him. We avoid confrontation. Now, 2 and 3 seem a bit contradictory. How we do that? I think we can do that while maintaining the position of principles, by trying to build bridges with him. That it's not in your face, that we can work together and we can find solutions that might be transitional, that might be phased, things like that, ideas like that, but all while we don't give up on our positions of principles and while we keep moving and not waiting for something that might come or might not come. I think this probably would be the solution for us and maybe for other problems as well.
And I have a last question. Qatar announced that they would suspend their role as mediator in this crisis. What do you think of this? And do you see Saudi Arabia playing a role now?
Well, I heard other things. Because I heard that the Foreign Ministry of Qatar denied the reports that they said something like that, denied that they are withdrawing from the negotiations, and denied that they requested Hamas Politburo to leave. So I think these reports are not that credible to start with. And I don't think that this is bad.
I think they were talking about suspension, not withdrawal. But anyway.
Well, I think the engagement and the continuation of dialogue is important as is necessary. Now, as far as the Saudi Arabia, I think the Saudis are very important. And if there is one card that the Arabs, that we, the Palestinians, still have, is the Saudi card. And how we play that, that's very important. And I think that we will have to intensify a dialogue with Arabs taking into consideration the fact that the role to be played by Arab countries will be augmented, whether we like it or not, because of the weakness of the Palestinian element. So it's only logical to assume that this will mean even more Arab role to be played, and that will be headed by Saudi Arabia for sure.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister Olmert. We have 2 minutes left.
I think that if the war will stop, then with Qatar or without Qatar, I believe that we can bring the hostages, those who are still alive, back. So the key to the change is not whether the Qataris are publicly still committed to negotiations or not. They are. But whether the war will stop. The key to make a new opening is to end the war. And I believe that if the war will end, there will be an understanding that all the hostages, or all the live hostages, living hostages, and the others, and the bodies of the others, will be returned to the State of Israel. Question about Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is part of a broader strategic plan, which you have to give credit to President Biden that has started it. And I believe that this is also the framework which can justify for both the Israelis and the Palestinians concessions which must be made in order to achieve it. So if the price that we have to pay, and I talk about ourselves, is to offer a new political horizon that will change dramatically the situation in the Middle East, and that will help create a new axis with Israel, Palestine, Jordan, Egypt, Emirates, Bahrain, other Muslim countries, and Saudi Arabia, then maybe there will still be a hope which comes out of the pains and blood and despair that we have experienced over the last year.
Well, thank you very much. I'm sorry this was so short, I didn't have time to take questions, but I think we have to thank you very much for the goodwill you're bringing to this and wish you the best of luck. Yes. Et merci. Merci beaucoup.
Ladies and gentlemen, the exit will be through the bottom of the room. Please don't leave your belongings. Mesdames, Messieurs, les sorties se situent au pied de la salle. Merci de ne rien laisser à vos sièges. Merci.